That is the purest odd intention without any aura. Senior sister has been very kind to you since I joined the sect 8 years ago. I often practice swordsmanship with you. I even use my own genius spirit treasure to help you practice ski. But you've been practicing for 8 years and you're still in mortal form. According to those who do not build the foundation for 8 years will be expelled from the mountain gate. And you are about to be evicted. I heard that senior sister was seriously injured in the sect competition. The next moment, the sword light shot straight into Dab I swear from the sky. At this time, senior sister Emily was lying alone on the ground during the competition. She was hurt badly. She looks pale. He looked at the young man James in the square with murderous intent in his eyes. That young man has the same cultivation level as her. If you lose in an honest fight, you lose. But she was not convinced this time. If no one comes to power again, David will be the head of the law enforcement all this year. Just when the elder announced the result, there was a faint sound of swords in the sky. The sound of this sword is very small, but extremely crisp. David in the middle of the square just took the token. I suddenly felt a palpitation in my heart. Clang. Instinctively pull out the long knife. The spiritual consciousness of the golden elixir stage spreads out. No energy. You can't feel any aura with murderous intent. The next moment David spit out a mouthful of blood. The token in his hand fell to the ground. The whole person flew away like a kite with its string cut off. He looked towards the mountain path at the entrance of the square with horror in his eyes. At the moment when the sword hit him, he finally found the opponent's position. But it's too late. The sword pierced his shoulder directly, pricked a bloody hole in his body. Then above the shocking cheers stopped in summer. No one reacted, mainly because this sword is too quiet. No momentum at all. Doesn't carry any spiritual energy. Who? In Blandby Kilda John flew down. The stands hurriedly supported Kinshul. Everyone looked towards the mountain road together. I saw a young man coming slowly. His long hair was tied back casually with dried grass, wearing a washed green shirt. It's ordinary. This person has no cultivation base. However, there are still people on Wonder Mountain who have not cultivated themselves. Emily looks at you on the mountain road. There is no emotion on the face. His junior brother gave him the impression that he was stupid. From the day Master took you up the mountain, I never saw your junior brother go down the mountain, either looking at ants stupidly, or looking at leaves stupidly. Sometimes he can stare at a dead fish for a whole day. In the early stage, as a senior sister, I must take care of your junior brother. But later, after Emily formed a pill, she started constantly going out to perform sect tasks. Gradually, I stopped paying attention to this silly junior brother. You wiped the sweat from your forehead, ignoring the glances at you. Emily fell to the ground in the peak stand. Elder John looked at you angrily after stopping David's bleeding. Who are you? I sneak attack on David. You have a smile on your face. Dancing Michael. I'm here to challenge this year's law enforcement leader. A group of people burst into laughter. I think you're just here to make fun of me. But David can't laugh. The injury on his shoulder is still aching. Elder John also looked solemn. His cultivation level at the nascent soul stage is extremely high. Didn't notice the sword intent just now. This made him a little embarrassed. This boy is not simple. The sect competition has ended. Let's challenge another day. You ignored Elder John. It was he who hurt you. Emily nodded. Now she is also very curious about what her junior brother wants to do. Seeing Emily nod, the murderous intent in your eyes gradually solidified. His 5 fingers were stretched out as if a sword was wrapped around his fingertip. Emily is Jianfeng's baby bomb. Every time Emily makes a mistake, Master will beat herself up. This is the kind of thing even a master would be reluctant to fight. My baby was bullied by outsiders. Who can bear this? I have been on the mountain for 8 years. There are 8 swordsmanship practices in total. Please enlighten me. As you point out, the waning moon in the sky seems to be staggered. It's because the whole world has been displaced. Her sword. David's pupils contracted. A long sword cuts out tens of thousands of swords in an instant. He knows you have taken action, but he can't see. Can't sense any spiritual energy. Block. How to block? You can't even see the edge of your opponent's sword. Where to block? Tens of thousands of disciples in the square are confused. Looking at David, who was swinging the knife randomly. They feel nothing. I just think David is exaggerating a bit. Elder John, who was standing next to David, roared angrily. I strike out at you with a knife. Presumptuous. The violence or energy turned into a long dragon, biting towards you. Emily held the long sword and tried to get up, but it was a follower who fell to the ground again. Elder Zhao, as a great cultivator of nascent soul, you took action against my Jianfeng mortal body. Aren't you afraid that your master will come to Konglan Peak with his sword? When you look at Changlong, he bites his fingertip and a drop of blood pops out. David, who was swinging the knife randomly, felt his heart tremble. A fallen onion fell to the ground. Elder John hurriedly stretched out his hand to explore David's injuries. Except for the wound on the shoulder, David didn't have any external injuries. Where did that sword of waking thoughts strike? Elder John feels like he is going crazy. Your sword is too weird. This is the first time he has lived so long seeing this kind of bloodless sword. The extent of David's injuries has not been detected yet. The next second, Elder John felt his scalp numb. Her third sword is aimed at him. At this time, earlier Sister Olivia and an old man also followed to the square, saw David being chopped down with a sword. The old man doesn't even care about drinking anymore. Eyes sparkling. Some were so excited that they were dancing. Olivia only saw the sword aura coming out. I mention noise eyes to your heart. Old man. Please save my senior brother. I save him. I haven't seen enough. Old man. He grabbed Olivia and flew up to the stands of Geonfing. When Emily saw the old man, she quickly saluted. Disciple met Elder Ethan. The old man waved his hand and continued to look at the battle below. But I had other ideas in mind. It is rumored that Ethan was obsessed with swordsmanship when he was young, even to collect the top 10 names in the world. The sword stirred up countless bloody storms. Let it be that he was secretly teaching swordsmanship to his junior brother. The more Emily thinks about it, the more she feels like this. The moment I saw your bloody sword coming out, Ethan jumped up with excitement. Blood-killing sword. So fucking cool. Use yourself as a sword. Without any aura. Your sword intent to the extreme. Yao Yao stood further away in disgust. She suddenly felt that this old man seemed to be out of his mind. After the second sword is released, you put down your hand. Elder John's sword energy hit. A piece of blood and flesh ripped out of his chest. A top was strangled into pieces with the sword's energy. He is just a mortal body that has not yet refined its energy. There is no way to stop the nascent soul stage's sword energy. But at this moment, the sword energy suddenly dissipated. In the distance, Elder John was nailed to the memorial platform with a bloody sword. If this blood sword goes one step further, it will. And pierce his spiritual platform and pierce the Yuan Ying. He had to dissipate his sword energy. If the blood sword loses control, Elder John will definitely die. This is risking one's life. How long can a mortal live? At most 100 years. But Elder John is a Yuan Ying stage monk. Got a lifespan of thousands of years. You think you deserve it. They are all from the same school. How about we each take a step back? Elder John's speech at this time is no longer as tough as before. Tear off the rags from your body. You slowly approached the two of them. I seen your sister crosses the ranks and kills enemies like eating and drinking. How could I lose to this guy? You kicked David on the ground. Squinting at Emily. Please, help sing your sister over here. Shushu hurriedly picked up Emily and jumped off the stand. As soon as she came up, she started to complain. I targeted senior sister by. This damn old man even attacked my senior sister during the game. You grabbed Emily's arm. Pulse normal. It looks like he just lost a lot of blood. Emily's face is slightly red. Although the two grew up together. I'm fine. My face is stained. Your eyes are full of heartache. Senior sister was bullied like this. It would be fine if the master saw this. You glared at Elder John. I wish I could kill this guy right now. Don't do things like this. I really thought I had no one at Geonfing. Elder John lowered his head and did not dare to speak. He has lost his face today. Being a member of the presbytery, Bingran lost to a disciple. At this time, the remaining 5 people on the referee's bench also stood up. The powerful cultivation levels of the nascent soul stage are revealed at the same time. The 3 early stages of nascent soul. The middle stages of nascent soul. A domineering momentum swept the entire audience. This is the presbytery. Everyone is a member of the sect. Let's end this matter here. You squinted at the 5 people. This is to cover up. Maybe they were originally in the same group. The third sword wind rises. Well, the entire Jianshu Square was suddenly filled with violent winds. His sword is not as quiet as the previous 2 swords. The competition lay vigorous. Thousands of sword intentions come with the mountain wind. The land of Jianshu Square was scratched and cracks appeared. The 5 nascent soul elders hurriedly raised their spiritual energy shields to resist. This was the first time they had seen such a terrifying sword intent. Unreasonable. Broken gold and broken stone. Tens of thousands of disciples in the square fled at the same time. Although this sword is not aimed at them, but this kind of swordsmanship passed by the strong word. Boy, stop. Ethan was originally looking forward to it. With this sword strike, he finally couldn't sit still. At this time, inside the Jianfing bamboo house, Alexander looks toward Tanshu Square, but a strong sword spirit. Jiran is taking advantage of the general trend of the world. Tanshu Square is not just a sword storm. There are even some star-catching experts taking action. Senior brother Ethan. Tyler Ethan has been silent for too long. The last time he made a move, he went down the mountain. stealing the Thunder Sword from Late Yabo. Beaten to death by the boss, she was about to go out to look for. A streak of light from the horizon came quickly. But I move all quickly. Our disciple is in trouble. Alexander's heart skipped a beat. The first thing that comes to mind is Emily, right? Beating someone to death in the sect competition. She hurriedly stood up with her sword and flew towards the Emu Palace. As I was walking on the road, I had already thought of an excuse in my mind. It's a competition. The sword has no eyes. Emily is so kind and cute. How could you intentionally hurt someone? The 10 elders of the Presbyterian Hall in the Emu Palace, the criminal code. The deacons and the masters of the first 10 peaks have arrived. Also sitting on the first seat was Jacob, the head of world-EP01-a sect. As soon as Alexander arrived at the scene, he knew that he was in serious trouble. The young master meets with the head brother. Jacob nodded. When he saw Alexander arriving, he rubbed his hands tightly. My fists finally relaxed a little, although his tone was calm. But Alexander could feel his senior brother's anger. Senior brother? Emily is still young. There is no sense in starting. I hope my brother will take notice. Jacob's eyes suddenly widened. Let's take a look at who is kneeling below. Alexander was stunned for a moment. At this time, I turned around and saw the main hall. The one kneeling in the middle is Ethan. There was a young man kneeling next to him. The clothes are in tatters and stained with blood. You, senior brother. This, what happened? Did you arrest the wrong person? Alexander stood up quickly, although I don't know what happened. But you must have been wronged. Jacob snorted coldly. I can't suppress my anger anymore. Ethan, you know you are wrong. And elder of the Elder Pavilion, in charge of the criminal law of world-EP01-a sect. Doing around deliberately undermined the fairness of the sect competition. Ethan's head tilted. Never admit mistakes. I have my own considerations. I am in charge of the Presbyterian Church. Can't we do some small tricks? You are angry, struggling to get up. He was going to bite Ethan's ear. It's a waste of time for me to be worthy of your brother. You actually tricked my senior sister. I will bite you to death. Jacob was furious when he pointed at you. And you, little cutie. Why are you pretending to be wronged? Do you know how many fellow disciples were injured by that sword? More than 10. Other disciples were slightly injured. Elders were seriously injured. Anshu Square is the treasure of world-EP01-a sect. Just half of it was cut off by you. How dare you be so cruel now? He said and kicked you hard. Anshu Square has been the facade of world-EP01-a sect since its establishment. Whether it's a big or small competition or a sect's reception, various events are held in Anshu Square. Now the square is like a dog gnawing. No longer as domineering as before. Ethan, you say it first. How do you want to trap Emily? Speaking of this, Ethan looked a little proud. This kid stays in the mountains all day bragging. What do you mean he has a sword? And happy are you one from King Shan? I asked him to behead him, but he pushed and delayed. So I cheated his senior sister. I asked him to hide it. Jacob frowned. And that's it. Ethan's eyes suddenly dodged. Isn't this almost spiritual testing? Jacob's brows softened. Now he finally knew the cause of the matter. World-EP01-a sect conducts spiritual testing every 8 years. If you cannot build the foundation, you will be driven down the mountain. And you can't refine your key. Though Ethan is forcing you to take action. He wants to prove your worth. You want to keep him. Ethan snorted coldly. I just feel the rules are too rigid. Such swordsmanship. What a pity. As a mortal, there are tens of thousands of disciples with one sword. Seriously injured 3 nascent soul stage elders. This is more than just swordsmanship. This is a monster he has never seen before in all eternity. But such a monster has no spiritual roots. No matter how amazing he is, he will turn into Lois after 100 years. It's a pity indeed. Everyone here was silent, except Alexander. She is still a little confused now. What killed tens of thousands of disciples? What damaged Anshu Square? What kind of swordsmanship? She doesn't know. Is it a mistake? All I did was watch ants in the bamboo forest all day long. Jacob sighed. Let's discuss your spiritual test in half a month. You two have caused such a big trouble and cannot go unpunished. They're all going to be imprisoned in the sword prison for me. An ocean sword prison. Its depth is invisible to the bottom. It is said that a murderer committed a crime in North America thousands of years ago. The Demon King arrived at the sword prison, and he lowered his head and looked down. He felt that the hairs on his hair were standing on end, like being stared at by the abyss. The Demon Lord is more vicious than ever. Vowed to enter the sword prison to investigate the competition. As a result, once I went in, I never came out again. Ethan walked down the stone steps, while talking to you. It almost makes this sword prison the most dangerous place in all time. As to vertical hole, you will be angry when you see this old man now. How could I have the time to talk nonsense with him? Even saw that he was still sulking. A loud and angry way of rationalizing the grievances. You have no spiritual roots. Lifespan's less than 100 years. Shouldn't waste time. The corners of your mouth turn up. Who says you can't create your own without spiritual roots? Originally, he thought that he might not be able to improve in this life. Until I met Olivia yesterday. He saw the sword inside Olivia. As long as you can transplant one, you can feel it. A sort of spiritual energy enters the body. He also has an innate sword body. Once this crazy idea is generated, I can't let it go anymore. What is missing now is a spiritual sword. Not that bamboo leaf, but without spirit. You took a look and said, this guy has quite a collection of good swords. The old man used his sword to hold up rubbish. Those good swords were a waste in his hands. In order to prevent the two of them from fighting again, Jacob imprisoned Ethan in the 10th floor. And you are locked up on the 2nd floor. From the first day in, you just kept lying at the cell, or looking at the cell, or looking at this vertical hole. The entire cave entrance is 10 hydrometers in diameter. Smooth rock wall. No matter how you look at it, it looks like sword prison. It is formed by a sharp sword piercing the earth. But how could there be such a big sword in the world? Although the two were locked up, the impact of this incident on the sect has become more and more intense. It's too magical for a mortal to use a sword to kill you on you. Except for those who were chopped. No one else believes it. Wants to challenge you. The originally desolate Jianfeng suddenly became a deserted place. I have trodden many paths. Finally, this is my senior brother Yizie Chantian's letter of challenge. Invite your junior brother to a battle at Tianshu Square. Olivia ran over and took the challenge letter. Already the 28th CO. I'm also here to send a letter of challenge. She happily handed her hand to the young man next to her. The young man hesitated and sent a letter. The letter is placed in Olivia's little hand. Not a challenge. It's a love letter. Little Olivia suddenly opened her mouth wide. For my second senior brother. No, but to your master. Inside the small bamboo house. The three masters and apprentices looked at the love letters on the table with different expressions. Ink letterhead with several hearts drawn on the cover. Also wrote some disgusting words. Olivia's little face is full of curiosity. Emily is a little embarrassed. Alexander lowered his eyebrows and lowered his eyes. The base of the ear is red. Emily spoke softly. Master, Bao Yao and I will avoid it. Alexander waved his hand. But to avoid, some things need to be witnessed by everyone. Avoid bragging in the future and no one will believe you. Decades. I don't know which mountain peak master opened his eyes. I'm a little nervous as a teacher. But please open it for me and take a look. Emily tore open the letter suspiciously. She receives dozens of letters like this a month. I don't understand why Master is so nervous. Letter opened. The font on the letter is vigorous and powerful. He should be a treacherous boy. Alexander squeezed the sweat from his palms, looking at the content of the letter with eyes filled with peach blossoms. My dear teacher, I don't want to stay in sword prison. I want to go down the mountain. Please help the leader to beg for mercy. Look at your name at the bottom. Alexander was completely stunned. She thought it was written by the head brother. I also thought it was Andrew, the sword fairy. He also guessed about his childhood friend who Yonek saw you. The only thing I didn't expect was this disciple. I split him today. Alexander kicked the table over. I grabbed a long bamboo and went straight to the sword prison. Yao Yao stood far away and did not see the content of the letter. I just vaguely saw your name. She covered her mouth in shock. So exciting. Second senior brother writes a love letter to Master. In the sword prison cell. You stare at the sky quietly. The two cells next to them also hold 1-a sect disciples. I don't know what happened. Stop looking. Since the opening of this sword prison, I've never been able to send a letter before. I am arrested several days a month. I've never seen anyone come in and get out early. You are too lazy to care about the two of them. You know your master. As long as the letter is sent, people will definitely come. I inferring that you have thought of solving the spiritual root problem. But it requires a lot of medicinal materials and spiritual stones. In the past 8 years, you have hoped more than anyone else to practice cultivation. And now we have seen the light. If I practice ski and kill gods, if it is foundation building, I also remove the star-catching legs for you. Whose leg are you going to take off? A scream in the sky. Alexander came out of nowhere. A long blue dress is floating in the air and looks very fairy-like. Give me a reason to let you out. Get back when beaten. This is what you taught me. Alexander's face turned green. I blame her for co-writing it. Those disciples were really injured by you. Until now, looking she still can't believe it. One cannot use the slightest spiritual energy. How could someone do this? Someone is definitely targeting Jianfeng in this matter. Brother Yao, who was eating melon next to him, was a little confused. He turned around and asked Lao Yu, what were they talking about? I've no idea. But this girl is pretty outside. Hello, chick. Come in and play with Brother Yao. You turned around and gave Lao Liu a thumbs up. But even the famous tigress from Wandozon dares to tease her. Alexander looks cold. Raising your hand is a sword. Countless sword energies instantly penetrated the limbs of the two men. The shrill screams resounded throughout the sword prison. Asshole, my father is the master of betrayal. How dare you do this to me? Bando's sect is too broad. I can't remember some small places at all. Alexander is very angry. Grab Brother Yao's collar. Just a few slaps on your cheeks. For a time, blood and teeth were flying all over the sky. That's called bloody. Still want to go down the mountain? Don't eat shit. Throwing away the two people who had fainted. Alexander raised his hand and patted your face gently. The threat is quite obvious. You didn't back down. You are still staring hard at Alexander's eyes. You won't let me go down the mountain. I'll fight my way out. Alexander didn't speak when he heard this. Ethan, who's imprisoned on the 10th floor, was anxious, but it can't stop the prying eyes of those who reach for the stars. He yelled loudly, Boy Wang, don't be impulsive. That's treason. I'll go and plead with you. You glare at him. This old guy can't even protect himself. Who are you fooling? Alexander gritted his teeth in anger. It was the first time she discovered that this apprentice was so persistent. Master, my disciple has never asked you for anything in the 8 years he has been on the mountain. You didn't care much about your disciple either. I beg you this time. Speaking of this, Alexander felt a little guilty. Come to think of it, this child is so extreme because he lacks companionship. Her heart suddenly softened. On this day, Alexander went to the 100 Eyes Hall with his sword in hand. Not into a fight with the boss Jacob. It is impossible to plead for mercy. How can there be any reason for a cute little junior sister to seek help from a senior brother? For Jacob Jianshu Plaza has not been repaired yet. Another corner of the Aimu Palace collapse. In the end, it was the Supreme Elder who came out of seclusion and caught the two of them. You were released smoothly and early. But Ethan, the Supreme Elder came out of seclusion and beat him again. I heard that the wine gourd was broken. I heard you released Olivia early. I waited at the mountain gate early in the morning. That sword is so amazing. She wants to learn. Senior brother, this way, even though you were far away. Olivia jumped up and waved to you. You were also extremely excited to see Olivia. The shrinking figure was running very fast on the mountain road. After a few ups and downs, I came to Olivia. She immediately blushed to her ears. I was so nervous that I couldn't speak. What's the point of the cold wine blowing while standing here this morning? What to do if it gets rusty? Senior brother is caring about me. Olivia's breathing is heavy. He quickly withdrew his hand and looked down at his toes without speaking. Emily heard Olivia shout. I knew you were back and I rushed here. I just crossed the bamboo forest and saw you teasing my junior sister. Junior brother, probably my junior sister. You quickly put away your crazy look on your face. Senior sister, how is your injury? I feel warm in my heart when I hear you care about Emily. It's okay. Thank you, junior brother. Then can you lend me some spiritual stones? Olivia witnessed Emily with her own eyes. The bulging little money bag was emptied. She clutched the lotus leaf wallet on her waist with some palpitation. Junior sister, what are you panicking about? I have no money. After waiting for a day, none of those who wanted to challenge came. I actually waited for Ethan to come. Seeing the other person's face covered in bruises, I'm finally relieved. Although this guy is not doing human affairs, the starting point is also for your own good. Little friend, didn't you enter the sword? What are the remaining 5 swords? That day he heard that you have 8 sword skills in total. I've been itching for the past 2 days. So he escaped from prison. Anyway, there aren't many people in Wandozon who can take care of him. You gave him a warning look. Ignore him. How could such a secret be revealed casually? The 8th sword. I just want to know about the 8th sword. I'll trade my baby for you. After speaking, he carefully looked around. Alexander is not here. Emily is teaching Olivia how to practice. The environment is very safe. Cautiously took out the swords from the storage bag. Full of alertness. It's like someone will pop up and snatch his sword at any time. A handful as dark as ink. There is scarlet blood mist surging on the sword, shockingly evil. It seems to be a magic sword. And the other one was covered in frost as soon as it was taken out. There's a cold light on it. Just looking at it makes my heart tingle. About 10 famous swords in the world. Imminent cold light. You choose one. You reach out and caress the blade of the sword. It is indeed a rare and good sword. But compared to little junior sister you, how has always been a bit lacking in spirituality. You shook your head, somewhat disgusted. Take your sword back. Without spirituality, you are just scrap metal. But as soon as I finished speaking, a sudden change occurred. The cold light sword Jing shook violently. A sharp edge suddenly rolled up a large sword energy. A sound of hunting in the forest is heard. It is still not convinced. Michael held the hilt to the sword, but pressed the trembling cold light sword back again. Ethan glanced at the cold light sword reluctantly, put the demon sword back into the storage ring. Cold light sword ranked second on the list of famous swords. I was chased for more than 3. I rode miles just to steal this sword. My shoes are all gone. Michael gave the old man a warning look. This guy's swordsmanship is mediocre. I also like to collect famous swords, but a waste. Look at Ethan's determination. Michael no longer refuses. About to go down the mountain in search of medicinal materials. Carrying a sword saves you a lot of trouble. After putting away the cold light sword, Michael carefully took out the bamboo leaf from his arms. Okay, and I will tell you the 8th sword. This sword has not been named yet. Jian Chen. Move for the wind. Have you ever flown a kite? It's like this kite flying against the wind. Jian Chen. Like a flat boat. Ethan listened patiently, but he doesn't understand. Somewhat unreasonable. Is it powerful? Michael replied firmly. Yuan can be cut from King Shan. Ethan swallowed. The Yuan is thousands of miles away from here. It takes half a year for a strong starcatcher to fly at full strength. This cowhide is a bit exaggerated. And no matter how you look at it, it's just a broken bamboo leaf, all over the mountains. Right, Elder? Don't listen to this idiot's nonsense. I think he is blinded by hatred. Alexander just came back from the Aimu Palace. I happened to hear the two talking, so I couldn't help but say something. Ethan didn't reply. After bidding farewell to everyone at Jianfeng, they returned to Jianjing prison. He escaped secretly. I have to go back in to be punished. In Glan Peak Hole. Sophia's face is terrifyingly gloomy. His son David hasn't woken up yet, and Michael was actually released. It's absolutely hateful. How about it? Have the injuries been found? Several Glan Peak elders around shook their heads. They take turns checking. David had no injuries other than a penetrating wound on his shoulder. The whole person's breathing is steady. Hold an elixir is also normal. But I can't wake up. It's simply a weird incident in the world of cultivation. Big Master, how about going to Jianfeng to find Michael for treatment? There must be a solution to what he did. Sophia clenches her fists. It's embarrassing enough to lose to a mortal. Now I have to come to my door for help. How can this make him hang out in Wando sect in the future? John stays. Let others do whatever they need to do. After everyone had left, Sophia lowered her voice and explained. Tomorrow you carry Zhao to Jianfeng. It's all up to Jianfeng to decide whether to save him or not. John was speechless. Isn't this completely messed up? That's all if they save people. If a person dies, I will use all my strength to be buried with Jianfeng. Alfia's eyes are filled with murderous intent. He has now reached the peak of his divine form. As long as he breaks through and reaches for the stars, he is not afraid of Alexander. Glan Peak is full of talented people. There are several elders who transform into gods. Elder Nascent soul more. What does Jianfeng have to contend with? Early the next morning, parent disciples carried David up to Jianfeng. After passing through the bamboo forest, I saw Emily and Olivia practicing swordplay in front of the bamboo house. Oh dear. The 3 of them threw David to the ground and ran away. When Emily Olivia came over, she only saw David lying unconscious on the ground. Senior sister, what are they doing? Emily frowned. His face is a little solemn. I'm afraid he wants to gamble his life with us. Gao Yao's face turned pale with fright. He hurriedly ran into the bamboo house to find Alexander. After some inspection of David, Alexander looked suspicious. David is full of energy and blood, not like a patient at all, but just unconscious. Where is Hutian? Olivia answered quickly. The second senior brother went to watch the entrance trial early in the morning. It is said that there are too few people in Jianfeng. He went to find some good disciples for his master. Alexander suppressed his anger. His apprentice who never goes out. I seem a little restless lately. At the foot of Wando Mountain is Wanshan City. Since the entrance trial of Wando sect has begun, the number of migrants from outside the city increased sharply. Have you heard about it? A Yanshui spirit troop came out yesterday, accepted as a direct descendant by the elder of Zhaoyao Peak. But this, latest news. A minefield was detected this morning. Inside the inn, everyone swallowed in unison. A physique that is said to become stronger when struck by lightning suddenly appears. Tuna, a young man shook his head contemptuously. His face is like a crown jewel. Her temperament is a bit cold. It seems like I have no interest in the people I just talked about. At this time, a girl walked into the inn. All the talk stopped in the center, mainly because this girl is so beautiful. It's hard to take your eyes away after just one glance. The figure is flawless. It can be called a disaster for the country and the people. She walks straight to the boy. Ying Ying smiles. The little girl met Joshua the Sword Fairy. There was an uproar. Everyone in the inn hurriedly cut their heads and dare not speak anymore. Joshua nodded. I'm here for only one thing. Recently, there are rumors that there is a young man in Jianfeng who uses a mortal sword to reverse like your nascent soul. Is it true? Benedere, not neglect, hastily told the news she knew. The news came from the disciples of Wando sect who came down the mountain to experience. Because it was so shocking, the entire Qing dynasty was soon alarmed. I even heard that the third prince is heading south. I want to go to 10,000 mountains to compete with swords. It's true, Joshua's eyes are filled with heat. After paying for the meal, he hurried to wander Ocean. In the glassy Tianshu Square, the group of elders excitedly surrounded a young man in brocade clothes. Very good. A heavenly thunder body is rare to encounter in 1,000 years. Are you willing to worship me as your teacher? Zhou Lengfeng. Why are you, the swordsman, making such a fuss? Juvenile. I, Lianfeng. Just need talents like you. If you enter my Zhaoyao Peak, I guarantee that you will become a god in 3 years. Michael desperately squeezed into the crowd. Choose Jianfeng? My master is a kind-hearted person. Half married yet. An elder saw Michael. I lightbound upon the butt. Pushed him out again. And Michael is worried. These elders are so shameless. You've always tracing him. Oh, juvenile. I advise you not to be ignorant of the good column. After some dispute, the heavenly thunder body finally worshipped the thunder flame peak. Michael beat his chest, staring at these elders fiercely. I'm thinking about whether I should strike with a sword. Anyway, the strength has been exposed. It doesn't matter anymore. Emily saw Michael blushing from a distance. Junior brother. Master asks you to go back. Michael pretended not to hear. Continue to look at the crowd in front of you who are testing spiritual roots. As stable as an old dog. Want to plant your own spiritual roots. As referring to Olivia is not enough. If you can look at other spiritual roots more, you will be more confident. There were hundreds of thousands of people in the square for the assessment, but only 1% of people who truly have spiritual roots. And the Tianpin spiritual root is even more unique. You are ignoring me. Lily grabbed Michael from the crowd, the feet facing his butt. It turns out that the senior sister is here. There were too many people and I didn't pay attention. Forgive me, sister. Lazy to pay attention to his excuses. Emily pulled Michael and returned to Jianfeng. David's vitality has declined. Alexander also began to worry that this guy would die in Jianfeng. The elders of Beaikao Palace on Jianfeng looked at David and shook their heads, expressing powerlessness. If you have a missing arm or a broken leg, they can treat it, but there's nothing they can do about this situation. Alexander suddenly looked to the horizon. She felt a terrifying sword intent approaching. This sword intention is extremely domineering. Seems to have the potential to crush everything. Joshua invites the Seekers. After saying that, the sword came from the sky, breaking through the sky. Alexander's face changed drastically. Cut it out with the same sword. The entire sword peak is trembling. Wait until the shaking stops. A young man in white clothes is already standing in the field. He didn't look at Alexander. Instead, he reached out to check on David. Interesting. Alexander's face turned pale. No one in the entire Wando who dared to ignore her like this. Even the leader of the clan, Jacob, wanted to give her 3 points. And have you ever been so angry? Die for me. Sword energy vertical and horizontal rule. People fighting together. The elders of Beaikao Palace hurriedly protected Olivia and Kinshu. Reach for the stars to show off your power. The spiritual power is raging, causing the world to change color. After dozens of moves, Alexander gritted his teeth. You are a star catcher. She slashed out with her sword, leaving Joshua flying towards the 100 Eyes Palace. Can't beat. Looking for senior brother. Turnham Lu. Someone bullied me. Where did you die? Good Dame. If he doesn't handle it well, I'm afraid he won't be able to leave Wando Sect today. Shaking his head, he flew back to the bamboo house and continued to explore David. Bound slightly. This person is hard to save. The mind has been broken, as the walking dead. After speaking, Joshua set the sword on the ground. Ignore David. Look up and look in the direction of the Aimu Palace. Soon Alexander came with Jacob. Sword Fairy Joshua. Have you gone too far? His face is still cold. Fancy the unnecessary expression. What about Jacob? Hey Joshua. Built the foundation when he was 6 years old, performing elixir at the age of 12. Now he is only 40 and he is already reaching the stars. I'm talking about Wando Sect. Even the whole of southern Xinjiang was not taken seriously by him. And she hands at leisure. Then try the sword of the catechumens. Jacob squinted slightly, the hand with the storage ring gently tapped. Why did you come to my Wando Sect? Joshua didn't hide it. Look at the mortal man wielding the sword. After saying that, he looked at Alexander again. If it is true as the rumors say, I don't think a seeker can teach this person. I am the only one in the world who can do it. I was contempt in his words, with strong confidence. Alexander's finger bones turned white when holding the sword. I'm here to steal my apprentice. Blatant robbery, but she didn't immediately refute. But after thinking for a few seconds, he said, Yutian has no spiritual roots. Does Jianxian have a way to help him embark on the path of spiritual practice? If Joshua can. Alexander doesn't recommend giving up this apprentice either. Joshua shook his head. Since ancient times, those without spiritual roots cannot practice cultivation. This is an iron law, although I can't let him practice. But I can make him shine extremely brightly for 100 years. Emily was stunned as soon as she and Michael approached Jianfeng. The bamboo forest in the mountains is swaying here and there. The mountainside is covered with sword marks. The two looked at each other. Everyone thinks that Clan Peak came up the mountain. I flew to the bamboo house and saw a few people arguing. Emily hurried forward to meet Jacob. Michael passed by the crowd and grabbed Olivia's little hand. Yao, are you okay? Olivia shook her head in confusion. Shouldn't we first meet with the master and the leader? Has third senior brother have evil intentions towards you? A second senior brother. I'm fine. Olivia pulled out her little hand awkwardly. Pretty face turns red again. From the moment Michael landed, Archerai's eyes never left his side. In his eyes, this young man is ordinary. It made him doubt whether the rumors were true or not. Boy, throw your sword at me. Joshua targets Michael. Speak softly. Neither Jacob nor Master Muking spoke. They are also curious about Michael's sword. They were not in Tianshu Plaza before Tyler. Just heard. Michael shook his head. Joshua smiled. At a joke. A sword immortal in the eyes of the world. Michael's lips curled up slightly. He said before that if he refines his ki, he can kill the gods. If you build a foundation, you can reach stars. Now he wanted to add something. If that person stands still and lets him chop, there's no need to build a foundation and you can still reach for the stars. Oh, your sword. I'd rather see how you make me die. Michael fiercely drew out the cold, light sword and slashed it out. No sword spirit. There is no sword intention either. As if a mortal waved at will, Joshua's body suddenly retreated. An extreme sense of danger lingers in my heart. His consciousness instantly covered the entire Jianfeng. Can't feel it. Can't feel anything. But that sixth sense of swordsmanship is unmistakable. What sword is this? Michael's lips curled up. There was a hint of arrogance on his face. This is an arrogance that no one from Jianfeng has ever seen on his face. It seems as if everything in the world is contained in his sword. Wake up and I'll tell you later. After that, Michael picked up his sword and followed him. He slashed wildly at Joshua. Jacob looks at Alexander. There is some shock in the eyes. He said Joshua's sword fairy is weak. You can't do this if others don't fight back. I really feel like I've lost my temper by reaching for the stars. Alexander nervously held the hilt of his sword. She was a little afraid that Joshua could not help but draw his sword and kill Michael. Joshua was forced to retreat to the mountainside. His originally calm face was covered in cold sweat. He was about to shout stop when he felt his heart tremble. At this moment he felt as if he was dead. An old woman in front of him handed him a soup bowl. "Bone, wake up." Joshua spurted out a mouthful of blood. He stretched out his hand to support Siyu Aiju beside him and gasped for breath. A feeling of death is so real. If it weren't for his firm mind, he would definitely be lost. Michael sheathes his sword. Step forward and look at Joshua's face. This sword was somewhat different from what he expected. I didn't expect that someone in Jingran could forcefully wake up. Good. Upper-level qualifications. This is what Michael said about Joshua, regardless of his character or swordsmanship talent. He is no better than his incompetent master. Joshua endured the severe pain. You still have a sword. Please take action. Michael knew he was talking about the third sword, the Wind Rises. Eiler's sword offended tens of thousands of disciples. Renascent souls were crippled. I'm more famous. I still have 7 swords. But why should I show it to you? Stay somewhere cool. After speaking, Michael walked back to the bamboo house, playing with little Olivia. Joshua wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and chased after him. The eyes are no longer indifferent, but with extreme hate. Bow down to Michael and say goodbye. Your sword skills are exquisite. Joshua asks to be your disciple. Everyone present was stunned. I never thought things would develop like this. Yijian's young. Yutian's cultivation is shallow. Alexander hasn't finished speaking yet. Aberrations Joshua kowtowed to her. Joshua pays homage to his master. Michael points to Joshua. I can't accept you. Don't yell. Call my master old. If the master does not accept a disciple, the disciple can no longer afford to kneel down. Jacob tried to persuade him for a while, but couldn't persuade him. I could only return to the 100 Eyes Palace with my sword. Anthony is sitting on the threshold at the entrance of the temple. When he saw Jacob coming back, he hurriedly greeted him. Master, have you avenged your little sister-in-law? Jacob told Anthony about the situation that jumping before entering the palace. Anthony lowered his head and thought. He is becoming more and more curious about Michael. The people of World-EP sect all call him the leader of World-EP sect, because there is no one in the world that he can't do. I know everything about formations. He even knows how to use swordsmanship. Practiced swordsmen love to fight the most, so he was very curious about what kind of swordsmanship could achieve this level. Anthony asked to himself, System, you said that if the ghost shadow flashes against him, he will use the move of breaking the mind. Who wins and who loses? The system voice sounded in his mind. Host, don't doubt. You are the strongest. A ghost shadow can't beat me. I have a stronger move here. Maybe a future Deshan's song. Anthony turned and entered the temple. It's really a waste of worry. System companion. Who in this world can be stronger than him? That's more. Michael is still a mortal who cannot cultivate. On the Sword Peak, Ashua consciously built himself a cabin. I also went to be a Aimu hole to register my identity as a disciple of World-EP sect. All I can say is that I did everything myself. And Michael locked the door. Secretly took out the money bag from under the bed. A total of 10. Tyro low grades. Spiritual. These are all borrowed from Emily. Olivia seems to be quite rich. He calculated it would cost at least millions to buy enough medicinal materials for planting spiritual roots. The most important thing is to have a sword that can be used as a spiritual root. A cold light is good, but not suitable. Lack of money. The side just fell. Ashua eagerly opened the door and rushed in. He piled a lot of spiritual stones on the table. There are 2 million high-grade spiritual stones. This is all the belongings of a star-catching mirror. Michael's face darkened, accusing tone. Disciple comes to visit late at night, but something happened. Ashua looked happy. Agreed. I knew it was so easy. Why did you kneel down for a long time stupidly? Master, or in the day, there was something that the swordsman didn't understand. Michael pointed to David lying outside the bamboo house. Since aura and spiritual consciousness cannot be detected, must feel it with your heart. If you can save him, you can understand that sword. Ashua bids farewell to Michael ecstatically. I rushed out to study David again. What does it mean to reach the sky in one step? Michael hugged the spiritual stone on the table and kissed wildly. I couldn't help but laugh out loud like a pig. Bamboo house next door. Olivia got goose and stall over her body when she heard that. Emily patted her little head. Tighten your mind. Don't be affected by foreign objects. Michael, rich. 1 million high-grade spiritual stones. If I am a bride price, how can I marry 10 senior sisters? 100 masters. An explosion. Several bamboo houses were blown away at the same time. Michael's precious spiritual stones are scattered everywhere. Alexander stepped on his waist. Take off his pants. Lift up the bamboo stick and whip him. Emily quickly covered Yayao's eyes. A junior sister. Can't see. Although she said this. But I would take a peek from time to time. I haven't seen my junior brothers naked but for many years. I've grown so big before I knew it. The days in the mountains passed quickly. Half a month has passed before I knew it. Michael, who originally planned to go down the mountain, still didn't move. He is waiting. Wait for Emily to go out. He can't get close to Olivia until Emily leaves. There are some things he hasn't figured out yet. But Michael lacks most his patience, because he can't afford to lose, causing the river by feeling the stones. On wrong steppings you could be doomed. At 5 o'clock in the morning, Michael got up on time to practice breathing techniques, still unable to store any spiritual energy as before. Go to the bamboo forest to learn swordsmanship at 6 o'clock. I went out to look for food until 12 o'clock. The dining hall is basically filled with handyman disciples. Most of the inner disciples have already gone away from grain. Michael entered the dining hall and went directly to the 2nd floor. No way. I have money to spend recently. Needs. Bring the menu. A girl happily placed a menu made from jade tablets in front of Michael. Senior Brother Wang. I heard that the 3rd prince of Qin Dynasty has arrived at Wangshan City. Come to you to compete with swords. The menu in Michael's hand slipped. A murder flashed in the eyes. Needs. I served 2 dishes. After Juju leaves the room, Michael clenched his fists. The anger in his eyes has quickly climbed up his cheeks. Heard Prince Joseph. Aitken swordsman. He's also Michael's cousin. Just don't go back. Michael stood up and walked out of the room. He threw a high-grade spiritual stone to Juju. The food is out of order. I'm in a hurry. 1st floor. Several drunken disciples saw Michael and made sarcastic remarks. You, a trash who can't practice cultivation. Yes, such talent in swordsmanship is simply wasted on him. But to look at, this is not Yonshu Square. Can you still kill me? And Michael's eyes darkened slightly. Unable to practice. Life is short, no matter how strong he is. He can't be more powerful than a shooting star. He can't wait anymore. He needs a sword worthy of him. Return to Jianfeng. Joshua is slapping David. Disciple, follow me and get a sword. Joshua was stunned for a moment. What sword to take? I could look towards the direction of Sword Prison. If he guessed correctly, there's a sword lock there. A peerless sword comparable to Olivia's. 100 Eyes Hall. Anthony is sitting on the threshold and yawning. The terrain here is very high. If eyesight is sufficient, you can see all the Fatito, arrow peaks of Wanda Ozone. Basically, some peak leaders are not very honest. Jacob asked him to relax. This is a boring job. He was about to close his eyes for a while. A sword light suddenly lit up in the direction of Sword Prison. Damn it, was causing trouble. Anthony takes one step. A figure disappeared instantly. His shrinkage is even faster than that of Mitsuyuki. It took only a moment for Anthony to arrive at the Sword Prison. I saw the 10 elders guarding the entrance of the cave staggering around. Tingran was seriously injured. These elders are all transformed into gods. When he saw the sword light, he rushed over. This little time is not enough to pee. Who is breaking into the Sword Prison? The elders struggled to get up and replied. Joshua. Anthony narrowed his eyes slightly. Go down the stone steps at the entrance of the cave. Once you understand the sword realm, you can be called a sword fairy. And Joshua's cultivation level is as high as the sky. Few people have seen his sword domain. System, do you think one sword can break his sword domain? When he went down to the second floor, he saw Joshua. At this time, the swordsman admired by the world was bullying to foundation building monks. Brother Yao and Lao Yu knelt on the ground, trembling all over. The two of them had just been beaten by Alexander last time. The injury is not healed yet. That man actually came back with helpers. Let me go. My father is the master of BA, Holy Peep. There are 10,000 ways to kill you when I get out. Brother Yao is still arrogant. Joshua slapped him by looking up at Antoni. Here, no access. Do you know what you are doing? If you want to do whatever you want and want to osect and reach the stars, your cultivation is not enough. Joshua raises his hand and strikes with the sword. Never talks much. Anthony quickly stepped back and formed a seal with his hands. Fire escape. The art of powerful fireball. A huge fireball exploded throughout the second floor cell. Suddenly smoke and dust rose everywhere. Pearl eyes. Open. And Michael looked up towards the second floor. Various magic spells flicker there. Metal, blood, water, fire and earth all came together. His eyes are full of admiration. This is the gap. Others are full of attributes. And I don't have any. Ethan, who was lying on the 10th floor, burned over. I happily took a sip of wine. But swordsmanship. I go. Anthony, don't take it easy. Joshua, cut off his turtle shell. And Michael glanced at Ethan, somewhat disgusted. This guy has no expert demeanor at all. If someone comes down, help me block it. Just half an hour. If I don't come back, please go to Jianfeng to report the funeral. After saying this, Michael continued walking down without waiting for Ethan to reply. If he guessed correctly, the reason why Sword Prison is called Sword Prison, it was built to imprison the sword. This means that the sword, very fierce. If you drive it forcefully, you will probably die. He doesn't have the incredible qualifications of Sword Immortal Joshua, nor does he have the all-round talent of Anthony, a leader of all arts. If you want to become stronger, you have to be crazy enough. Nearly 1,000 meters down. The Sword Prison seems bottomless. Starting from the 20th floor, the people held in the Sword Prison are no longer members of the Wando sect, but countless strange monsters. These demons are all bound by the formation. The roar can still shake the heart. Michael kept walking down with firm eyes. When we reached the 100th floor, there are no roads anymore. There is a locust tree standing at the end of the front. A hip, forbidden, on a locust tree branch. A little girl brushes aside leaves, pointed a finger at Michael. I need a sword. The little girl never gives in. That sword doesn't belong to this world. Michael smiled. What a useless reason is this? I was outside the cave before, and came the bottom of the cave. Do you think I belong outside the cave or inside the cave now?